Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes.
Hello again, and welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We're always excited that you're choosing to join us, whether you're watching it, whether you're listening to it, either way. So thanks so much for checking in. And I'm very excited to welcome our guest. This is Judy Ryan. She is the CEO of LifeWork Systems out of St. Louis, Missouri. So Judy, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be on the podcast. What would you like the audience to know about LifeWork Systems?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me, Sean. I really appreciate. I've been in business for 23 years with LifeWork Systems, and I absolutely still have such passion and joy because what we do is we go into organizations of all different kinds and we help people get along. We help them stop gossiping. We help them to stay motivated and inspired and engaged and all those good things. And sometimes we work in nonprofit, government, corporate, even in education with school reform. So that's a little bit.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great. And it's much needed. You know, we're all still human. We're all trying to figure things out. But I'm glad also that after 23 years, you're still passionate about it. So
I am.
You found your calling, apparently. So that's
I know. I wish I could say that everybody is, because everybody should be, you know.
Yeah. Well, when you find what you love, what you're doing, then you stick with it. And there's no reason to change. Awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started with our questions. Judy, our first question. And this is going to, fit very well with what you're doing already. But sometimes a team or a company will kind of get into a little bit of a lull, you might call it. What can leaders do to help energize their teams?
So I'm a really big believer in something that your audience might think right away, like, oh, everybody does that. But we try to do it in a very unique way. And that is really focus people on their purpose and their core values and to create talking about them in more interesting and exciting ways. Because even like when you imagine, when we're kids and we do the Pledge of Allegiance, it becomes kind of rote and it doesn't necessarily inspire us. So what we do is we encourage people to do that in a very creative way. So our purpose statement, for example, is to create a world in which all people love their lives. And I'm going through a certification program with a bunch of coaches that are being certified in our CultureEX culture transformation process. And we use my company's culture purpose. And so one of the last times we did a group review, the person leading that group review, he brought a little video clip of some kids dancing all crazy, saying that if we got to love our lives, we have to kind of be like little kids and be silly sometimes. And then he also put together a montage of a bunch of photos of where he lives in his life, because he lives on a farm and he has all these goats and chickens and everything. And he just said, I love my life, So sometimes people use quotes or they use humor. I'll just tell you one other quick thing. One of my clients, their purpose was joyful transformation. And one of their core values was humor. So one of the people put a meme up that said, when life shuts a door, open it again. That's how they work.
That's just good. I've not heard that one before.
Yeah, and it just kind of helps when you go into anything to be mindful of that. So whenever we're working with a client or within our company, everybody creates their own purpose, core values, and visions. It's in a blueprint. And every time there's a mentoring session, the mentor shares the purpose and says why it matters to them, so that their eyes are upward in a positive place when they're mentoring the mentee, and vice versa. So those are the kinds of things we do to help lift that energy out of that lull.
Oh, I love that. I think that's such a great approach. And I completely agree that if any of us with anything that we're doing really, but especially in the workplace, connecting with what's deeper inside, the values and the passions and whatnot, that is such a critical step. So I'm really glad that you've got something that helps people to discover that and really cling to that as a way of helping keep that energy high. I love that.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
right. Question number 2, how can leaders promote learning in their company or in their team?
We use a best practice that isn't always necessarily widely appreciated at first. It's based on best practices out of education. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Sean. A lot of people have not, but it's called flipped classrooms or flipped training. And what we do is when we work with a client, for example, we have them interact with the content we're bringing them because a lot of it is not typical, it's not conventional culture. And so we have them do an individual online training, and then they fill out a reflective survey and they fill out a workbook, and then they come together and they lead small groups and how they're going to discuss it. So they have to kind of be on high alert because they're the one kind of reteaching it. And then they pair up and it's covered again in mentoring. And what happens is people have found that when it's done that way, where you have all these touch points and experiences, and you're doing it auditory and visual and kinesthetically, people retain what they learn. Yeah. They start to really understand the relevance of it, and then they are more likely to put it into play. And this is where, Sean, I have a quick story to tell about this because I think it's really powerful. I was working with a company one time that had about 550 employees, and we told them that this is the immersive process and that it should be for like people from CEO to frontline staff, about 20 people. Well, the CEO said, no, I just want all my executives in this first round, and about 2 months in, he said, you know what? These are executives. I don't want them doing homework. I don't want them filling out surveys. I don't want them leading groups. I don't want them mentoring. I just want you to come and just work every other week with 52 people that all have direct reports, supervisors and on up. And I said, well, this is what you're going to lose. And he said, I know, I'm okay with that. So the very first session, I taught them this tool called the Mind Trust. And if I were doing the Mind Trust with you, Sean, I would be saying to you one-on-one, I promise you I won't gossip about you behind your back. I won't say bad things about you behind your back. I promise that if I have a problem with you, I'll come to you and I'll work it out with you. And I promise that if someone comes and starts to say bad things about you, I will stop them and I'll direct them to go back to you so that they work that out instead of taking it to other people or holding on to that grudge. Well, this group of 52 leaders, they loved this. They all committed to do it with each other one-on-one and all that. And 2 weeks later, they said they all had done that. Fast forward to the end of the 6 months. One of them calls me, he's a director over 8 managers, and he says, oh my gosh, we learned so much, but we're still kind of at each other. We're still not getting along real well. Could you come in and work with us? And I said, well, let me call your CFO because I already have a call in to her today. I'll find out if there's budget for this. When I called her, she said, oh, he really needs your help. He said such terrible things about me at the management meeting with these 8 managers that 2 of them came and told me how terrible he was talking about me. And I said to her, well, did you ask them if they went to him directly? Because don't they have a mind trust with him and they didn't like him doing that? And she said, oh, no, I didn't. And I said, oh, I guess they didn't stop him then, right? Because they have a commitment to you that they'll stop people that are saying bad things about you. She goes, no. And I go, well, did you go talk to him once you found out he was saying bad things? Because you have a mind trust with him. And she goes, no. In fact, I went on on him to his VP and found out that VP was at the meeting and didn't stop him either. And then she goes, what is wrong with all of us? Now, the reason I tell you that story is because you cannot really absorb learning just a one and done workshop.
Right.
I always say it's like having a tennis racket that somebody gave you and thinking now you're a star tennis player and you're not. So anyway, sorry about that long story there.
No. Great story. And I appreciate the story because that will help all of our watchers and listeners understand a little bit better about how learning, it's a good thing, but we do need to find a way to apply it and keep using it because a one and done simply won't work. It just won't.
Yes.
So that's great. Great story. Thank you. All right. Question number 3, share one tip for really effective delegation.
Well, in our work, we focus on replacing external motivators with internal motivators. Because a lot of people, even when they're raising kids, this is a good, simple example, we're using domination, do it or else. And we do this in the workplace. Or we're using dangling carrots. Well, if you do this, you'll get this. Nope. Or we use a lot of judgment. I'm so proud of you, or I'm so disappointed in you. Or we sometimes even enable certain people, like we just exempt them or we let them off the hook because we just feel like they're not going to do it anyway. And so when we delegate, we use the intrinsic motivation motivators, because if you don't, you're going to fall back into control. So a story that I like to tell is when When my kids were growing up, I have 5 children. When they were little, by the time they were 5, they knew how to run a family meeting because we were delegating to them to take turns with us and each other to feel like they were part of the empowerment, part of the connected and contributing and being seen and heard, which, is they felt more lovable when they felt seen and heard. And it was kind of hard for me because I was a dominant, as you can probably tell, kind of a dominant mom. And I had to learn how to not steamroll a 5-year-old, So one of the things you do with delegation is you take time to train people. You help them understand why you're doing what you're doing when you delegate so that they feel the sense of meaningfulness, they have a say in it, and they can feel competent in it. And then you celebrate how well they did it. And that just kind of perpetuates effective delegation.
Oh, I like that. So give them the opportunity, and then you can kind of guide after that. Yeah, very good.
Guide, but then let go.
Yeah, that's usually the hardest part is having to kind of let go for a little bit. So
yes,
especially if as a leader you have a very defined outcome that you want. And that may be okay, and that may not be, and that's probably a discussion for another time. But yeah, you're right. Giving them the opportunity.
I mean, you want the outcome you want, but
Right.
if you take the time to make them feel competent, then you can let go of it in a way where they really own it, and then they feel the joy of it.
Love it. Love it. All right. Question number 4. How can leaders effectively communicate their purpose and vision to their team?
Okay, so in a sense, I sort of answered this a little bit in the first question that like you can use creative ways to do that. But I would also say sometimes what helps communicate purpose and vision is to ask questions. Hey, our purpose statement is to create a world in which all people love their lives. Are you loving your life right now? And what's one thing we can do to help you love your life in this week? That sort of question. Or here's the vision for our organization to partner with like-minded, like-hearted thought leaders worldwide. Where are we doing that? What are some things we could do to really live into that vision that we have? Or your core values, like, are we giving the signals out that we want people to feel free to over communicate with us, to ask as many questions as they want, that they're welcome to communicate with us, because that's one of our core values. So we have a saying, it's called SLAM. It's say less and ask more.
Oh, I like it.
And that helps people to own the purpose because they're creating how they're going to own that purpose. So that would be my response to that.
Oh, I love it. And I like how you made sure to include in there the importance of how I would call it is defining it, making sure that it's really clear, because that's one of the breakdowns that I've experienced, and I'm sure you have as well. A lot of companies and a lot of executives, they'll have the vision and they'll have the values and they'll have the mission statement, all of those really good and important things, but it's not clear to the rank and file or the rest of the team or the rest of the company what exactly that means. And to go back to what you were saying and being able to say, well, what does that really mean and where are we seeing that? Do we see it in our everyday tasks that we're doing? And being able to connect that, because that's where it really sinks in and they embody whatever it is, the values, the vision, and so forth. So
and we also have them express it in unique ways, not just the leadership. And we do that with our clients. So then there's even more ownership because they have fun with that. Oh, I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great. All right. Our last question. It's a fun question. One of my favorites, especially at the time we're recording this. The baseball season professionally has just begun. So we'll be a month or so into the season by the time this gets released. But tell us a little bit of a fun baseball memory or story that you have.
Okay, well, a couple quick things. First of all, I'm from St. Louis, so I'm a Cardinals fan. And I do love baseball, probably more than any other sport, which Sean, you apparently do as well.
Yes.
I'm going to tell 2 stories that may sound a little unrelated to the game in a way, but there's a famous guy in St. Louis. His name was Jack Buck. He was a big sports broadcaster and just a really good human being. And I remember when I was at one of the Cardinal games and I was driving out of the parking garage, which had multiple levels, and I stopped to let this car out in front of me that was waiting. And it was Jack Buck in the car and I didn't know it. And he gets out and he comes over and he gives me this big, huge Cardinal umbrella and says, I just want to acknowledge your kindness, and I just thought, oh my God, what a leader he was. I don't know if you know much about him, but he's a big, people really admired him here in St. Louis. And his son, I don't even know why I can't think of his first name, but Joe Buck, he has kind of followed in his father's footsteps. The other thing that was kind of interesting is Whitey Herzog was a big manager in the 70s and 80s and all of that. And when his daughter got married, I was a videographer at the time and I was videotaping her wedding. And I remember going up to him and asking him to say a few words to his daughter in the camera. And that was so exciting. I felt like a regular news reporter. So those are kind of my, but to kind of tie that back to leadership is we look up to people like the Jack Bucks and the Whitey Herzogs because they're excellent. They create excellence and they demonstrate care about people. And
it makes a difference when you show that and you demonstrate it. I love those stories, those little brushes with fame that were not, the videographer, you obviously knew that you were going to be at his daughter's wedding.
Yes.
But we also have those random situations.
Yes.
You find yourself literally face to face with someone, but you can relax and have a great.
I was blown away. And I think it kind of shows that being kind often pays, even though we're not trying to get anything for it, because I had no idea he was there and that he would do that. So it made me want to be kinder anyway.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that. Great stories. Thank you for sharing them. And Judy, again, thank you for taking time to be on the podcast. How can people find you?
Well, I would love it if people would go to our website. It's got gobs and gobs and gobs of information on it, on lots of different things. And it's LifeWork Systems. A lot of people want to put an S behind work, but it's LifeWork Systems. And they can also reach out to me if they have any questions, because over communication is one of our core values. And I would love it if they did that. They can write me at judy@lifeworksystems.com, or they can write our team at info@lifeworksystems.com. So we would love that. And of course, you can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook and all of those places too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you again for tuning in for another episode of the Team Engagement Podcast. We look forward to the next one. And in the meantime, have a great day.
This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.